Hello, today's game is between Kamsky with the white pieces and Svidler with the black pieces. This game took place at the MTEL Masters in 2006. So Kamsky opened up e4, c5 from Svidler, knight f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight c6, and then knight c3. Alright, so basically the players have gone into the Paulson variation of the Sicilian, which is noted by this move e6. Now, I just wanted to share with you a little tidbit from this position about the move order of Svidler here. So, if you notice on move 4 after knight takes d4, Svidler played the move knight c6. Another option is to play knight c6. And the reason why Svidler opted for knight c6 over knight f6 is that Svidler wanted to avoid the so-called carriage variation, which would take place after knight c3, d6. Now we've transposed into a Skyfinagan variation, and g4 with the idea of g5, right, hitting the knight. In this particular move order, with the knight still at home on g8, g4 really loses its value here as there's no target to attack. Okay, so that's just a little subtlety in the position there for you guys. So the game took place the knight c6, knight c3 was played, and d6. So there's your Skyfinagan variation. Bishop e2. Excuse me. And now knight f6. Castles. Bishop e7. Bishop e3. Castle, f4, and e5. So this continuation is not as common as the move a6. Usually, blacks playing in these types of positions is to begin counterplay on the queen side and get this bishop on c8 into the game, which usually comes to b7. So a6 and b5, and then bishop b7. Usually on on tap. So, for example, like the queen might come to c8 or something like that. Excuse me, c7, then b5, and then bishop b7. There's nothing wrong with this move that was played in the game. Okay, so it just means that Svidler was looking for a fight here. Okay, so knight takes c6 was played. Black seems just fine after f takes e5, d takes e5. There's really not much there after knight f5, bishop takes, rook takes, and queen a5. So this is why this position was avoided by Kamsky right here. Also, after f takes, d takes, and knight takes, I mean, this is like, they could basically shake hands at this point right here. Although black has this one weakness, it is not enough, especially at this level, to really make something out of the position here. So here, Kamsky just played knight takes c6, b takes c6, and this does have the effect of building up the black center. Now, the key with the centers is that for it to be really strong, it has to be mobile and functional. So when you allow your opponent to, build up his center, as White has done with this exchange, he has to make sure that the center never becomes mobile. That's when it becomes dangerous. As long as it's static and fixed, it's really not a big issue. And as you can see in this position, there's a lot of tension on the position. For instance, black couldn't just make a move like d5, right? Because the e5 pawn would be hanging. There would have to be some type of transaction taking place in the position, all right, before black can really even think about mobilizing the pawn center, all right. So Kamsky played king h1. This is a typical move, right? Getting the king off the dark square diagonal, right? And also it avoids a a check after this move. Um, E takes f4. Say bishop takes f4, then the queen usually will come here check and checking the queen on g8. Excuse me, on g1, checking the king on g1, and the pawn on b2 will be captured. So it's a typical prophylactic move you see in many situations where the f pawn has been moved up. E takes f4. Bishop takes f4. So you can see the transition in the position. So now you see black center is under some scrutiny here. Bishop e6, right? Trying to take over the d5 square. Bishop f3, fighting for the d5 square. All right. And not only does bishop on f3 protect this pawn right here, but it also keeps an eye on this pawn, right? It's like an X-ray attack. Okay, queen b6, and this is the move we were talking about. Notice how the king is tucked away already, so it's not with check. But now the b2 pawn is attacked. And what's good about this move for black is it gains time by attacking this pawn. It clears the back rank and connects the rooks. So now a rook can go to d8. So black is definitely equalized and has a comfortable position here. b3, rook fd8 as mentioned. Okay. Now it's funny because the question often comes up. Well, which rook do you move? Right? You could move the rook on the A file or the rook on the F file. So here's how my thinking would go here, because people always say, oh, develop your worst place piece. That's good, but what if like in this case both of the black rooks are pretty much you know like equal as far as like their placement. Like neither rook like stands out as, oh, this rook has to get in the game. So but here, like, my thinking would go like this. I would say, okay, well, white already has the F file open already, right? Of course there's pieces there and stuff like that, but you can't think like that because changes happen over the board, and next thing you know, the entire file is open. So my thinking here would be the rook is on this file and the F file is open. So I would choose this rook. But that's just how I would think. I could be dead wrong, but that's how I would think. I would keep the rook here more for like defensive purposes since the F file is open. All right. So anyway, he played rook fd8, queen e1. All right. Again, typical plans to bring the queen over to the king side for attack. That's the whole idea with f4. Sometimes you play rook from f1 to f3 and hover the rook along the third rank. The queen goes to e1 and then h4, sometimes g3. Again, this is a common idea that you'll see in the Pyrrhic Austrian attack, right? And many other forms of modern defense with the f pawn, even the Sicilian lines, like the Grand Prix attack, for instance. We play e4, c5, and then f4, stuff like that. All right. So queen e1 was played, and now knight d7, and here's kind of like the first oversight of the game, and boy, is it a costly one. So Svidler plays knight d7. Okay, so this is this is what happens when you have the right idea, but the timing is messed up. So of course, typical Sicilian stuff right here, right? Get the piece to e5. That's the idea. Knight d7, knight here, and the knight will be very strong on this outpost. And of course, if white takes, black has solved all his problems. There's no backward pawn. Plus, the rook is already on the open file. So, it's everything is good. But at the end of the day, chess is a concrete game, and tactics are king. All right, so it's tactics, position second. Right, so tactics first, then the position. So here, Svidler overlooks tactics, in an attempt to improve his position. All right. So here, uh, Kamsky plays knight d5, attacking the queen and the bishop. So everything is forced now. The transaction is forced. He plays c takes d5. Of course, if he plays bishop takes d5, it's going to be down material here after e takes d5. And let's say bishop f6. And then just d takes c6. Attacking the knight. The rook is, again, this bishop. Remember we were talking about this bishop's x-ray power on this diagonal. So he takes with the pawn. C takes d5. Kamsky plays e takes d5 again. Right? They always tell us in the chess books, right? Or if you have a chess coach, always make sure your pieces are protected. So you can see right here, even the GM's overlooking the basic rules sometimes. There's the bishop on e7 is not protected, and that's what allowed the combination to take place. Queen takes e7, bishop takes f3, rook takes f3, and now the knight returns shamefully back to f6. Bishop e3 hitting the queen, and now queen a5. All right, and now we have a new set of problems for black. Just note here how his pieces are all, most of his pieces are all on the queen side of the board. This leaves him vulnerable for attack on the queen side. Oh, on the king side, I'm sorry. Also, remember what I said a few minutes ago. Remember I was talking about which rook to bring over. And I was saying leave this rook here for the protection of the f-file. Right? Because the f-file was open. So now that that rook is gone, keep that in mind. Kamsky played rook takes f6, g takes f6, queen takes f6. Okay, now you can see all the threats on the board. Bishop d4 is a major threat. Bishop h6, right? Now, rook e8 was played. And this is an example of desperate measures. And just trying to find a tactical solution in the worst position. That like never works. But people do fall into traps. But it's when you're dead lost, what else can you do except try to set a trap for your opponent? And the idea, of course, is if Kamsky, loses focus and plays a move like that, then it's gonna be mate on the back rank. Right? And white will meet an ignominious ending. So, of course, Kamsky sees what's going on, plays queen g5, king f8, and now bishop d2 attacking the queen. And now Svidler was forced to resign. The idea is that after queen d8, just check here, bishop c3, and then you get on the diagonal, and then black has to just start giving up massive amounts of material. And so that's why Svidler resigned. So I hope you enjoyed that game. There's several lessons that you can take out of that game. Again, remember, tactics are king. Right, Svidler had the right plan with the maneuver knight f6 to d7 and coming to the e5 square. Right, typical Sicilian themes, but he overlooked a tactical shot. Okay, so that's one lesson you can take. Always tactics are king. All right, so it's good to have a plan, but make sure your moves work out tactically first. Another thing, protect your pieces. Right? Do not have hanging pieces. Always try to make sure your pieces are protected. So you see a grandmaster, just overlooked that situation. That's what allowed knight d5. So those are like the major two themes that I want to bring out in that. Also remember too the little tidbit that I showed you about the skyfinagging and avoiding the carriage attack. If you want to avoid that, instead of coming out with knight f6, play knight c6. Okay, and make make white, resort to something else there. Okay. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that game. Please check my links below. Please donate to my channel. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, check the links for DVDs and/or books, which are always related to whatever opening was presented in the lesson today. So today we looked at an opening which involved the Sicilian defense. So check those links below for that, and I will see you guys in the comment section and on the next video.